Hello and welcome to Soapbox Speakers. Or as I'd like to call it, intolerance of the intolerant is nonetheless still intolerant.
I feel like we did well to get this far in without breaking the AKA.
What?
The AKA.
Oh.
You said as I'd like to speak it, so now from now on it has to be like a welcome to Soapbox Speakers, or as I like to call it, fuck your mama, or whatever, I don't know.
Fuck your couch.
Not sure if I can say the full quote of that. I don't think I want to be recorded.
I mean, out of context, or with no context, yeah, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah,
But if we go by Carla's take on it, then it should just never be said by anyone.
I don't necessarily agree with everything Akala says.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you don't agree with our great and powerful Messiah? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Anyway, Soapbox Speakers. Boom, we're back. It's been a while. I've been busy, and it's all my fault. Somebody left their phone on loudspeaker.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. So this week we have a lovely young woman in the corner doing artwork called Antonia, who may or may not join in. We'll find out. It could be that I could have not said that and you'd have been none the wiser, but we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Oh,
no, that she joins in. That she joins in, dickhead.
That's harsh. Burn.
I didn't mean that as a burn. Antonio, I'm so sorry. No, louder, you need to say...
No.
The audience needs to know you're not actually upset by that sick burn, which I did not intend.
Okay. Yeah, no, sorry it's been so long. I have been changing jobs a lot. And that has sapped my will to live a lot. So, yeah, let's talk about me. Because clearly everybody's here to listen about how amazing my life is.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So I got a job.
That's why I keep turning up.
Yeah, I got a job making boats. It lasted about 3 weeks, and then I got a new job, which I quite like at the moment. Now I'm a seamstress making curtains. Boom,
Fuck
nailed
yeah.
it. So, yeah, and the commute to the boat job was horrific, but I got to experience once again the deep and intoxicating nature of toxic working man masculinity, I think is what I'm going to have to call it, because it's not just toxic masculinity, it's like a specific strain, which is the working man's toxicity. And like,
I would argue there is something inherently hostile about an all-male grafting working environment.
just like there's something inherently hostile about an all-female working environment.
Yeah, but you're currently in an all-female environment.
Well, no, not anymore, because I'm there. I feel like I am a mediating presence because of my different gendered personality.
Yeah,
That came out weirdly, but yeah.
It did a little, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so, like, yeah, it was great fun. So I had such things as my boss talking to me about how it was better back in his day when, when bosses abused you and fired you at a whim because there were no laws preventing them from doing it, and how that garnered respect. And it just seemed to me like this guy was a bit upset that nobody respected him without the threat of losing their job.
Nice.
So,
that's what you always want.
Yeah.
I'm sure that leads to a productive workforce.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I had a great kind of like leaving conversation with the lads when they found out I was leaving to make curtains with middle-aged women. They were like, and then my boss was like, great, you can sleep with them. And I was like, why? And he went, well, you want to sleep with middle-aged married women because they have the most to lose. And I was like, what do you mean?
What the fuck?
And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, well, they're married and they've got kids, so they've got the most to lose. So, they're not going to tell anyone about it. And I was like, what? Are you okay?
Wow. This reminds me of that article I heard about. It was like someone's blog post where it was basically like advocating for why it's great to date women with body issues.
Oh, Jesus. What, negging?
One of the arguments for why it's great is because they're easy to emotionally manipulate.
Ugh.
Like, the fuck?
Ugh. Like, if you are not, like, in boosting your partner's confidence, you're doing your job wrong. Like,
I don't think your entire perspective of relationships is fucking warped.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's the problem. Is a lot of people's, view of relationships is warped.
Yeah, I mean, this is something we've touched on before regarding like the nature of a healthy relationship and why isn't that like taught in sex ed and stuff.
Yeah.
Like you're taught like the physical ramifications of sex. You're not necessarily taught like the emotional and social ramifications.
Which I would argue could actually end up being way more damaging than physical.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's a tough one. But we don't talk about our feelings, Matt, because we're men. Manly men who don't talk about our feelings.
I struggle with that one because we have a podcast in which we talk about our feelings on shit.
I'm so lonely, Greg. Yeah, I know, I was being sarcastic. We're not actually manly men who don't talk about our emotions. We're manly men who do talk about our emotions. And I would argue that men who don't talk about their emotions are not in fact manly, they are just repressed.
Yeah, I mean, that is a common meme. And I think there is a strong grain of truth in that.
Yeah. Men build shit and then we die.
It's in our
Why? It's in our DNA.
Boondock Saints 2, go watch it.
And the first one.
You can watch both standalone. Like, you don't have to watch one without the other.
But I wouldn't want to, because like the first one's amazing.
I mean, you've got a point, but the first one doesn't.
It is your evil that we claim.
The first one.
We're just quoting a film that most people haven't seen.
Yeah, the first one that doesn't.
Ultimate podcast.
Yeah, the first one doesn't have that speech though.
No, but it does have the speech at the end, which is it is not your weak or your sick that we want. It is your wicked that we claim.
Yeah.
Do not stray too far from the line of sin.
These are not mere suggestions. They are moral truths.
Do not kill. Do not steal. Do not lie. These are truths any man of any faith can live by.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's fucking dope. Go look at it. I have not brought any topics because why break tradition? And I'm sure you have quite a few for us. So.
It's unfortunate because the times you have properly prepared, it's been really fucking good.
I
always think back
can't
to,
do
the
it.
Order of St. John and that was great.
But I can't properly prepare for all of them because then people won't realise how great I am when I prepare. It'd be the norm, and they'll be like, oh, Jake, it's standard Jake. But now if I prepare, people are like, oh man, I thought Jake was just like this bumbling idiot that just said yes to everything Matt says. But look, he's got a brain, hasn't he?
Yeah, fair.
Oh boy. But yeah, I'm sure I'll remember things to talk about. Things that frustrated me in the last month.
Yeah. So, subjects.
Brexit.
Oh, I'll get to that. Actually, no. Fuck it. No, because this is me having an internal monologue and it sucks.
Okay.
Liam Neeson.
Oh, that's a big one to start with.
Liam Neeson.
Can I start with?
Do you want to open with this?
Well, I just wanted to say that I've been banned. I've been blocked by someone on Facebook over this. So it is a hot topic as far as I'm concerned.
Yes. And that's you being banned is tangentially leads on to another subject. But yeah, Liam Neeson did nothing wrong. I mean, what he did in his teenage years was wrong. But after a week of wanting to go out and kill a black man, he realised the error of what he was doing and how stupid it fucking was, and corrected his behaviour. It is a great story of someone having a moment of realisation about oneself. And was he at the time bigoted? Yes. Is he still? No, because people change.
People learn, develop, and grow, and stop doing awful shit.
Yeah.
And this kind of argument that we should be held to account for things that we have done in the past, but no longer are it's like saying like if a convict stole a bunch of cars and then got reformed and would no longer steal cars, but you'd be like, no, he still deserves to be in jail for the rest of his life because he once stole a car. No. Yes, people should be responsible and be held to account for their behaviour. However, people should also be rewarded for breaking the cycle and becoming a decent, upstanding citizen. And if you manage that, then you should be allowed. It's not necessarily
a question of reward. It's like you should be able to share those stories without you being called a fucking bigot. Was what it's literally implying is that, no, if you weren't born with this value system and didn't realise it was inherently wrong from birth, then you are fucked in the head. Piss off with that bullshit.
What if he actually beat up a black guy?
What, now?
And then now was and I went out and beat a man up. and then a week later I snapped to my senses. Like, what would the reaction be then? Would the reaction be the same? Or?
The issue I have with this is because there's real world examples of this. There's plenty of fucking like former neo-Nazi skinheads from LA that like have gone to prison for fucking hate crimes and have reformed and now like do tours around schools like speaking out against bigotry and getting into these kind of like where like into gang culture where it's like a lot of it is racially motivated and speak out against racism. Are we saying that they shouldn't do that because they were those people then? Are we saying that they're not reformed, that they're still not they're not worth anything?
Yeah.
Like that's some fucking weird like esoteric shit. Right? That's some weird backward way of thinking.
I think the thing that really kind of that gets me is this idea of mob justice, and I fucking hate it. Like if you are personally affected, like we're personally affected by the actions of somebody, say you were the black guy that Liam Neeson beat up in this fantasy world, right? Yeah. Like, by all means, never forgive him. Yeah. You don't have to. You know, you don't have to forgive him. You don't have to do that. You can hold that against him for the rest of his life, and that's absolutely fine. If Liam Neeson then comes and tells you a story about how he did that, and now he's better again, now he's realised the error of his ways, he's genuinely remorseful, and he's being a better person than he was before, it's not down to you to punish him for what happened, because chances are he's already like been punished in one form or another. Like remorse and turning something around and being remorseful of your actions does not come without the pain of the realisation that you once did horrific things to somebody, and also and having to get over that.
I would also first of all, let's make it even more extreme. Let's say he did kill someone and was caught and sent to prison. Do you think Liam Neeson would have the career he did now if he'd done that? Like,
no.
Like all of this is pure speculation. It's like a guy went around with wrongthink, and as such, we should end his fucking career. And there are some people campaigning for that.
Oh no, that might actually happen.
Which may well happen. Despite the
which is exactly what I'm saying. Mob justice.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
Like the rapper Sage Francis. Check him out, he's great. Like had this one line which was fighting against bullying with mob mentality as if that isn't what a bully's like.
Yeah.
Like this is exactly the same. This isn't social justice. This isn't social justice warriors. This is mob mentality and bullying.
Hence, and thus, it's okay to punch Nazis.
I don't know. I don't know whether or not it's okay, but them Nazis are pretty punchable.
That's my point, though. Because what it's saying here is, like, as long as if someone fits a criteria in which, like, we deem them not worthy anymore, and whoever we are in this case, the mob.
Yeah,
right?
like, yeah.
I'm speaking out. I forget his name, but that fucking white supremacist prick, and he is a complete and utter prick. I can't remember his name. Do you want to look it up? Yeah, I will. But anyway, he was that guy who was wearing like a Pepe the Frog lapel pin. And during an interview on the street, an Antifa guy did this running jump into his
punched
face.
him in the face. Yeah.
I forget, like, him, right? Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong, he is utter fucking scum. He's the most entitled prick you have ever met. But I nonetheless don't think it's okay to just simply punch him.
No. This is, there's a couple of things here. So the MAGA kids. Is it MAGA? The MAGA.
Proud Boys, you mean?
No.
Oh, the Indian... Yeah.
The MAGA kids are a bunch of school kids who are wearing Make America Great hats. Again, hats. And it was seen that they were smiling smugly in front of a American Indian.
Native American,
yeah. Sorry, I'm fucking fucked.
No, it's okay.
You say it's okay, but I'm about to get mob justice on the internet here. So, but
okay.
Anyway, like, it was portrayed in the media as they were hurling abuse at Native Americans, whereas actually, if people have watched the footage and actually they didn't. All they did was campaign peacefully for what they wanted, and then stood there and smiled while abuse was thrown at them. Essentially,
yeah.
Like, and then this Native American got up in this guy's face and played his drum in front of him. But which nothing's really been done that's wrong there.
Oh,
there's nothing wrong.
That's just legit
right?
protests from both sides.
Yeah. So, but like, these guys have had actual death threats.
Yeah.
People have been calling for them to be expelled from schools, and they've hired a lawyer to sue the media for their portrayal of these kids because they didn't actually do anything wrong. And it's exactly the same, but like, no, the mob decided they had, and the mob had a fucking go, mate.
Yeah.
And another thing, I watched, I shouldn't have clicked it. It was fucking clickbait, but I clicked it because, you know, nobody can resist clickbait forever. And it was this little thing that was like, this young man tried to rape this guy's daughter, and then what this guy did to him was horrific. And it was posted by like Nature's Brutal or something like that on Facebook, and it was literally a video of just this guy kicking the shit out of this kid, like genuinely like might be dead kind of violence.
Okay.
And I watched it, and it was pretty horrific. Like the guy choked him out until he was unconscious on the floor, and then just kicked him in the head over and over again. Right? So like right. You know, not recovering from that anytime soon.
Right. Yeah. And
with no content, like there was nothing in the video to suggest that any of the actual previous story given was true.
Just so I'm clear here, so the implication here is that the guy he was beating up was
his daughter's boyfriend, and
who'd molested his daughter,
who tried to rape his daughter.
Right. Okay.
And but that was given in the story beforehand. Like,
so
there was no actual
molested there. Was right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there was no actual proof.
Right.
But like, even if there was, he still shouldn't have done what he did. Like,
sure.
That's my stance on it. But I read the comments, and that was a doubly mistake, because it's just like how... it's just the ready acceptance of violence.
It doesn't matter whether or not this isn't a left or right issue. This is a mob mentality issue.
But it was the amount of people that were just posting like, he should have gone further. He should have beaten up him and the cameraman. Yes, good for you, Daddy. The only problem you had was that you got filmed. I'm like, so how many people out there that have this attitude towards violence?
Yeah, I do have a legal example of this.
Right.
This, I think it was in the 1980s. This video footage exists, and it unfortunately went out live. You know those like there's instances where like live killings have ended up on live TV. This is how I found out about this story. Because it was like a compilation of like ones that had occurred, and it was saying like what the story behind them was and why it happened. And this guy, his son had been molested by the boy's karate instructor, and it was an interstate issue because of the nature of the trial, and like I think the family moved somewhere else, and then when it was finally came to light, anyway, they were transporting the karate. After the teacher had been tried and found guilty, they had to move him to a previous state, to another state. I can't remember why. And it was a massive media shitstorm. And there was a live camera crew filming the karate instructor being escorted. I think it's because I think the karate instructor had to be brought back from another country, perhaps. I can't remember now. And while they're filming him coming through arrivals, the father is in the background, and he kind of runs forward with a gun and shoots this guy in the head. Blows his fucking brains out live on TV. He is grappled, the firearms removed, and then he's detained, and then it goes to trial. And the argument that gets made at trial is that this was a crime of passion on his part.
No, it's premeditated.
No. Here's the rationale the judge gives. This man is not a threat in the sense that he is not going to go out and murder again.
Right.
Because the reason for the murder...
Unless somebody molested his son again.
But the sentencing that occurred was basically what's it called when they give you like a conditional sentence? Is it?
Oh, what? As in if you're caught again, you'll get put in prison.
We're now giving you time for this crime. He was a commuted sentence. He was given a commuted sentence. Basically, like, so if he ever exhibited violent behaviour, if he ever committed any violent crime ever again, he would actually have to serve life.
Jesus Christ.
So like there is like from a legal standpoint, there is a crime of passion argument, and like there is.
But like that happens. I'm assuming this was America.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that happens in America, but a trans woman who defends herself in the street.
Sorry, where's this coming from?
Sorry, this was a video I watched ages ago. I can't remember what her name is, but there was a trans woman who was put in jail for killing somebody in self-defense.
Okay.
Because she was getting attacked on the street.
Yep.
and she stabbed the guy with something and it went straight in his heart and he died.
Yeah.
Right? But it was the first thing to hand. It wasn't like premeditated. It was literally like, somebody's attacking me, I need to defend myself.
Yeah.
And she was later set free because there was a massive
campaign.
There was a
massive
campaign.
It was self-defense.
Yeah, but it took like 8 to 10 years.
I mean, I would kind of argue that like it's possible the judge was incorrectly sentencing.
Yeah.
And you could make the argument that there's a potential kind of a transgender discrimination there.
Yeah, but that's my point. That's exactly why I'm just like...
The reason I say this is like because our legal system, when it comes to issues of self-defense and... Yeah, when it comes to self-defense, it's a question of like, is the response... like so? Was the response
reasonable for
you? Yeah, was the response... Now, I would argue in her case, yes.
Yeah. So I remember reading up about... I think our mutual friend, I'm not going to name drop or anything talked about like what is considered reasonable defence, and it's like
that old OAP who killed those travellers.
The guy who came into his house. Stabbed him with a screwdriver.
I can't remember now, but like
or a kitchen knife, something like that. Anyway, but like as long as it's something to hand, like you grab something that's close to hand, you use it to defend yourself until you no longer feel threatened. You are fine. It's when the threat is no longer there, i.e. they're running away or they're on the floor or something like that, and then you continue with the violence. It's no longer self-defense.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the general.
Yeah,
gist.
I mean, to use the American take and apply it to the dad that killed the karate instructor. Yeah, you could make a premeditation argument there, and that isn't necessarily a crime of passion.
It's not.
But the American American legal system is slightly different when it comes to issues of self-defense.
Yeah,
they are big proponents and defenders of like property rights and shit.
Yeah,
not that that's relevant to.
And they're also big proponents of like the good guy with a gun, and I feel like.
Well, I mean, there are... Okay, just to clarify something here, there are some states where legally you are okay to do this. So the scenario is this. You walk into a room and there is a person there molesting a child. You are okay to walk behind that person and blow their fucking brains out.
Fair.
Like, that is legally protected.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, in some states that is viewed as fine.
You see, if you felt like that was the only way that you would be able to guarantee the safety of that child, then I would argue that that's okay as well. I know that doesn't come into it, right? But like.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from. And I agree.
Yeah. Like I'm not necessarily saying that is wrong.
But we are looking at this in a proportional response standpoint.
Yeah.
So I would argue, yes, if the only way for you to defend someone is to kill the person attacking them, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, kill them. If you're in a position to do so, by all means.
Yeah. Whether or not you can is a different matter.
Yeah, but that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're talking about like the action after it's happened and how it's viewed legally.
Yeah. I hate violence.
Yeah, and I agree, and I like I said, I was under the opinion that so did a lot of social justice people. But apparently, it's fine when it's Nazis.
No, apparently it's okay. Like.
You're right. Actually, it's just when it's okay. If you are, if you fall under the bracket of wrong thing, well, then it's no holds barred. Fuck them. Which reminds me of
for a minority.
But it's like it's like
always a minority. It's just a vocal.
Yeah, but it's like the Scientology fair game policy. You familiar with this?
No.
Okay, so the Church of Scientology had an internal memo, an internal policy that basically said if anyone on the street who wasn't a Scientologist or was a former Scientologist or all other stuff, if they started speaking out against Scientology, they were fair game in the sense that they would use whatever resources they had at their disposal to litigate against that person, to use the legal system against them, to hire private detectives to follow them and find shit out about them and then release it online, to dox them, to do all these things. They were free to do whatever the fuck they wanted.
Right.
And this went even more extreme, which is that the Church of Scientology got in trouble back in the day. This was back when L. Ron Hubbard was still alive, because they broke into some state building and started setting fires or something.
FBI, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think they killed. I think they may have killed someone. I can't remember now, but there was a bunch of shit that they did that was essentially them attacking the federal state. Attacking the federal government. They were a terrorist group. You can argue that they were a terrorist group, and that was because of this policy created by L. Ron Hubbard called fair game. So, and unfortunately, like this kind of fair game, sorry, not game. I keep saying gain, I mean game. This fair game policy kind of seems to have been unconsciously adopted by the socially concerned left. I don't want to use the term social justice warrior because that is innately like used as a pejorative, but like, and it's annoying because I consider myself a proponent of social justice. I just don't like the fact that if you're telling me I have to adopt this kind of frothing reactionary mentality where if someone falls under the bracket of wrongthink, I now have to like fucking do everything in my power to undermine them. No. I'm not doing that.
Like, don't get me wrong. There are situations where I'm confronted by somebody's point of view, and I do react in a, like, I wouldn't say like frothy, but you're not trying to
an
extreme way.
You're not trying to. You're not trying to ruin their career. You're not trying to like dox them. You're not trying to, what's the word? Like, you're not advocating for violence against them. You're not like
no.
And I just kind of want to say this now. Like, sorry, the Proud Boys are not Nazis.
No, they're not.
Like, they're fascists. But if you're gonna compare them to Nazis, Proud Boys don't hold political power. I would argue there are some white supremacists that hold political power. Yes, but I don't see you punching them in the face. You're talking about people.
Well, that's because they can't reach them. That's because it's fine, Matt, as long as we're fighting each other and not the rich. All the power.
Yeah. This is again why I have a massive problem with like the way intersectionality is currently being framed.
Yeah.
Because all it does is cause minority groups, and I am including.
Funnily enough, intersect.
Yeah. No, well, that's down to how you give weighting to each like factor within intersectionality. Because my argument is that ultimately this whole thing boils down to class, the haves and have-nots.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start framing it in that way, you bring together together every minority group you can think of, and as soon as you address that issue, then you can actually start like having the conversation about like, well, how this needs representing here, this needs being represented here. And that's not me saying you shouldn't campaign for like changes in legislation and better legislation. You absolutely should, but you're attacking the wrong people in that you're essentially attacking each other. And I'm not saying like, oh, if only Antifa and the Proud Boys could get along. That's not what I'm arguing. What I'm arguing is if only like campaigners for social justice could stop saying things like you're a cis white fucking male, check your privilege. That's what I'm getting at. Like, because the Proud Boys are a direct response to that.
Yeah. And also, like, if you do want to enact like change on a significant scale, maybe don't segregate cis white males from your movement, because that's quite a significant part of the population.
Yeah, and like I go back.
I hate to say,
yeah,
and an even more significant part of the voting population.
And also, like, sorry, but like, the biggest campaigner for changes in social justice and social reform, I would argue, who was like most effective and had the most kind of transformative effect, I would argue, is Martin Luther King.
Yes, and you're the one that told me. Yeah,
and if he was looking at you,
that you were the one that told me that as soon as as soon as Martin Luther King basically got like the law to recognise black people the same as white people,
as soon as Jim Crow
he started talking to the white working class, and was like
6 weeks later, dead shot in the street, gunned down in the street. Weird that. It's almost as if
they don't want white and black people working together.
It's almost as if the haves suddenly realised, oh shit, the have-nots are getting their shit together. I know that sounds really fucking conspiratorial, but honestly, I cannot help but be so. But like, that is way too weird a coincidence.
But like, yes, there are some outlandish and ridiculous conspiracies out there, but based on papers being released of conspiracies that happened 50, 60, 70 years ago, it's not actually that big a leap to imagine that it's still going on today.
I mean, like the FBI were targeting Martin Luther King and trying to get
fuck that. The CIA drug experiments. Like,
shit
like that.
I mean, that was called MK Ultra, and that went on, and that was like mind control research, which included that you can't do it. But anyway,
I mean, like
incidentally, one of the fallouts of the MK Ultra program was what's his name? Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber.
Really?
Yeah, he was part of an MK Ultra program. He was he was an experimental subject.
Wow. Jesus, it's like Unbreakable.
It's almost like.
Oh man.
Or Manchurian Candidate.
But yeah, can't remember what I was going to say now. Oh yeah, like if you want like an idea of what kind of conspiracies or what kind of things are probably going on, then just be aware of the fact that the only reason we know about the experiments of the Nazi Germany and of Japan is because they lost.
Yeah.
And if they hadn't have lost, they those would have continued and never have been made public knowledge. So chances are there is something similar happening in the countries that won.
Yeah.
Like Russia. Like what the fuck has happened in Russia that nobody knows about? Because
I mean, I would use another example. Look at when the claim was made that the Syrian government and Assad had used chlorine gas against its own citizens. Yeah. Like, if
sorry, that reminds me. Like they're currently what's the country they're going after at the moment? In America, they're like
Venezuela.
Venezuela, right? Like we are now like aware of the pattern. And we are aware of it enough to the point where people are just like, oh, hey, look, it's happening again, right? Yeah. Like, that is out there. That the media is portraying that. That is common knowledge. Not all media, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue Venezuela is a special case.
Why?
This one, because... Well, first of all, what does Venezuela have that America wants?
I thought they were the largest producer of oil now.
No, that's still Qatar. That's still Qatar. And, yes, they have oil, but oil is not as valuable as it once was. That like oil prices have dropped.
Okay.
Like
I don't know then.
Oil is lower than it ever has been. Like, and also the US gets most of its oil from Canada.
Fair.
I mean, like you could make like, and it's China that's buying Iraqi oil. Like.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Like, and I have a strange feeling China is stockpiling huge amounts of crude.
That would make sense.
Yeah. But like, don't get me wrong. As strategic, it's a question of like controlling strategic resources. So like, yes, there is an argument to be made for controlling the strategic resource coming out of Venezuela is strategically advantageous to the US. But like we don't like. I'm trying to think how to explain this. Like, Venezuela is really shitly run.
Right.
And has always been. The time when it seemed to be working was a time when the price of oil was massive and they were exporting it and making huge amounts of money, and the dictator who was controlling Venezuela could essentially just fucking give money to people, which is exactly what he did.
Right.
Now, I forget his name. Maduro, who's the current president in parentheses, he doesn't have that revenue stream. He can't do that.
Right.
And the country is starving.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it is Maduro, because they have this phrase of in Venezuela, the Maduro diet, which is because like as a nation, like per capita, like every person has like lost 20 pounds in weight.
Jesus.
That because of the level of shortage of food there. Might actually be 30 pounds, I can't remember now.
Damn.
And everyone is skinny as fuck except Maduro, who is
a fat fucker.
A fat fuck. Yeah, like not to put too fine a point on it, but yeah.
Damn. Oh, that's grim. So you'd argue that it's justified with Venezuela?
Well, my question, like, I wouldn't argue it's justified. My question is, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, is Venezuela going into like a civil war type scenario, going to destabilize South America? I don't have answers to this because I don't know much about South America. I would argue if anything is going to happen, it's going to be that drug cartels across South America are going to start pouring money into a civil war there, and they're essentially going to install
take over the land.
Yeah. And I would argue that the CIA is potentially trying to do the same. But that's all I can really say. Like, with any kind of degree of confidence.
Yeah.
Like,
poor Venezuela, man.
Yeah, no, it's fucked. Like, what is happening there is fucked up. And is wrong. Like, I'm not glad that it's happening. And people cite Venezuela as like, well, socialism doesn't work there. Well, they're not really fucking comparable.
Is it dictatorship, socialism?
Let me just clarify something here. By comparison to the US, the UK is socialist. Okay, we have socialist healthcare.
NHS,
yeah. We have a welfare system that's proportionally. We spend more on our welfare system than the US does proportionally. We have more social security programs than the US. We have greater access to sexual health clinics and abortions and contraceptives and family planning than people in the US. We're pretty fucking socialist.
Mm-hmm.
All of this is done by the state, by the way, which is why it's socialist. It's taking taxpayer money and redistributing it to like the lower income people. Right?
Yeah. Well, not just them either, actually. Like the NHS caters to almost everyone. Like.
Yeah, it does. But like, if you are ultra rich and can just completely afford your own medical care, then yeah, maybe you'll sign up with Bupa, which is like a private healthcare system, or maybe you just you just walk into a private hospital and pay for something.
Yeah, but I know an awful lot of upper middle class people who do still rely on the NHS.
Yeah,
you know, like it's not like only the poor use the NHS, because the NHS is fucking outstanding.
The reason I'm bringing up Bupa here is that. Like a private medical insurance company can still exist in a social healthcare system. Like, that's the only reason I'm bringing it up. It's not as if healthcare companies are just suddenly going to disappear overnight if you bring in socialized medicine. It's not like Obamacare fucking destroyed the private medical industry by company.
Yeah.
It was a socialist.
To be fair, that was fucking hamstrung from the off. So
yeah.
Yeah, it was grim. Grim. How did we get to this? Where did we start? Fucking punching Nazis? No, it wasn't even that.
Liam Neeson.
Yeah, Jesus. Fucking Liam Neeson, man. Sort out Venezuela.
With regards to Venezuela, like I said, I don't have an answer. I can make like an educated guess as to what is going to happen. Hence my point about like the drug cartels and the CIA doing operations there, because the CIA has always done fucking operations in South America. Like, that doesn't just suddenly stop.
Yeah.
Like, same within the Middle East.
And Israel and Pakistan.
If you want to, like, here is the short answer version of why the Middle East is what it is today, and why what is happening currently is happening. The US supports
World War II Ottoman Empire.
I'm talking about current.
Oh, okay.
There is a long build-up,
yes.
But right now, the main strategic resource in the Middle East is Israel. That's it. So everything that's happening to destabilize Muslim majority countries is to the benefit of Israel. That's why it's happening. That's it.
I don't know if it's true, but I saw on Facebook, where I get all of my news, clearly, America's just passed a security support bill for Israel or something like that, which means they now owe them like $39 billion.
What Israel owes?
No, America's going to pay into Israel $39 billion.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Do you know what I think that's probably for?
What?
It's for all the cyber warfare stuff that the CIA has been doing in Iran and around the world. Israel as a nation and as an economy is very tech savvy. Have some of the best programmers in the world. Not only that, they have a militarized cyber attack program, and they freelance. And they
can't wait to get off the grid.
And they freelance.
Yeah.
Right. So
highest bidder.
Yeah, private security, and this is how Obama can say things like, "Oh yeah, we've pulled out of Syria. We've pulled this many troops out of Syria." Yeah, but you've replaced it with private security.
Yeah.
You are still there. It's not U.S. soldiers now. It's a collection of what are essentially mercenaries.
Yeah. Well paid mercenaries.
Yeah. The money's still going there. It's still an economic drain. You're still fucking around in there.
You're still fucking around in there. It's just not your dick anymore.
Yeah,
just because you're using a strap-on doesn't make it any different, Obama.
Anyway. Yeah, so this security, there is backhand deals going on all the time for this kind of shit, because it's what is done. It's how it works. It's how strategic resources are micromanaged and carried.
And how are we supposed to affect any sort of change with this amount of shit going on?
We don't. That's the point.
Oh, thanks, Matt.
But yeah,
there's no point. End of podcast. See you guys later, everyone. Enjoy the end of the world.
Well, I'm not even saying this is the end of the world. I'm just saying, like,
when the sea levels rise, come find me. We'll have a beer.
What I'm getting at here is, like, you know, you want to like I said, this is like somewhat hyperbolic, but are you seriously naive enough to think you actually live in a democracy? And I don't mean to sound conspiratorial.
We no longer live in a nation of ideologies and principles. We are simply a conglomeration of businesses.
Yeah, the world is a business.
That lives by the immutable bylaws of business.
Yes. Yeah, and like it's self-empowering, it's self-reinforcing. Like, let's just be clear.
And I heard that on Immortal Technique's album again.
Oh no! Have you actually watched the film? The film we're talking about is the Network, by the way.
No, I haven't.
Okay, that line is from a film called The Network.
Oh, no way.
Where
I've chosen you to spread this message.
I have sinned the face of God. Anyway, I highly recommend watching The Network.
And I highly recommend listening to Immortal Technique. Like, I would, like, prepare for homophobia and sexism, because, like, based on Immortal Technique's, like, background and where he came from, it's kind of understandable. Like, in that, like, that is the culture he's come from.
Is he still homophobic and sexist?
You know what? I don't know. And it's always a hard one with rappers, because, like, what they rap isn't necessarily what they are, and people find that very hard to kind of come to terms with. So, like, isn't it? Yeah. So like if you like battle rappers, right? It'd be the nicest people in the world off the mic, and then when they get on the mic, they're like, you know, you fuck a boy, so fuck you, or whatever. And it's just like, you know, and it's bullshit, you know. It's literally
banter.
It's literally banter.
Oh, sorry, toxic masculinity.
So like, but like the problem is that Immortal Technique's so fucking funny. Because he was like, because he addresses people's he doesn't like, he addresses the fact that people don't like the fact that he's homophobic, and he was like, but if you can take a fucking dick, then you can take a joke. I was like,
it's cold, but
Oof.
I can't deny its potential entertainment value.
All right, I know.
I can't disagree with you.
Like, it's a song, it's music. Like, if he acted like that in real life, then I'd probably not tell him off, because you know.
Yeah, I know completely. I
don't tend to pick fights.
Yeah,
I'm a very peaceful creature.
Yeah, I mean, like tangentially bringing it back to. Like, you're not naive enough to think you're living in a democracy. I mean, that's a line from, like, Wolf of Wall Street. Not Wolf of Wall Street, it's Wall Street. With, like, I can't remember his name.
But, like, at least in this country, I see us as having the potential to turn it into one.
Alright.
like, I don't know. Like, yes, shit is corrupt, but we have the NHS. We made steps towards that, and that hasn't been erased yet. Yet.
And
like,
my question is, in what way do you feel you have any agency in it remaining? That's what I'm getting.
Because I'll blow up the Houses of Parliament if they take it away.
Well, there we go. But now that's not democracy now.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
Let's just be clear. I'm not like advocating for it and supporting it, but like I've long held the belief that there does come a point where if the state is behaving in such a way, you are well within your right to overthrow it.
Yeah.
Which is what we're talking about.
Problem is, people die when you do that.
Yeah, but
that's the price you have to pay.
It is the price you have to pay,
and it's grim.
I agree.
You know,
I mean, again, it depends on how you do it. Like, let's just be clear: Nelson Mandela was responsible for killing people, but they chose very specific targets to minimise that. It's how you go about it.
Right.
What they were targeting specifically was like South African. No, it was called, what was it then? Like Rhodesia or something. I can't remember now. They were targeting like logistics and infrastructure stuff. And were always, whenever they would attack those or bomb those places, they were doing it at a time when there was like minimal staff presence to literally minimise life potentially taken. A lot of their targets, no one died, but what they were doing was so disruptive to what the state was trying to do that it had a real impact on people's lives. There is an argument for that. I don't disagree with that. it gets very difficult when you start saying like, well, you're taking away socialized medicine, so now I'm going to start attacking the nation's infrastructure. How do you square that hole? How do you get people to side with that cause? How do you? I mean, the most extreme example for this is the IRA.
Yeah.
Which is on the rise again, as a by the way, because of Brexit.
And I can't help but understand.
Yeah. But,
frankly,
but again, let's be clear. The IRA killed people, but then
Oh mate, I had this discussion on.
This is that Facebook group that we're both on.
Yeah. Like that. Yeah, that was a weird one because it was just like, because that guy was like, so you agree with killing children? It was like,
yeah, he tried to straw man me completely.
The British have killed children.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I'm sorry. Do you think no children were killed when we sent missiles to Syria? Just to be clear,
actually, Matt, if you look at the government statistics, we didn't kill any civilians.
Right.
Any.
Yes, that's because
with all of our 30,000 bombs or whatever it was, we didn't kill.
They were missiles.
Any.
I think it was 52.
We didn't kill any civilians. We didn't kill anyone, Matt. We just took out strategic places.
What I would love to know,
like killing anyone.
What I would love to know when governments make statements like that, saying, "Oh yeah, no, they were all
no civilian casualties.
No civilian casualties."
That we know of.
Like, wait, hang on. So you're telling me that you
checked?
You sent the missiles and then put boots on the ground to check? Because I don't think you did that. Sorry, I don't think that happened unless we've sent an occupying force.
It's weird when you have to read the fucking Al Qaeda fucking newspapers to get a more accurate report of the fucking casualties.
And even then, you know a lot of it is bullshit.
Yeah,
but some of it isn't. That's the point.
But it's not as bullshit as no civilian casualties for 52,000 missiles. Like,
yeah, it's more believable than no casualties.
Well, you would have thought they would have at least like put in an arbitrary number, like we killed 52.
I mean, there's things
52, one per 1,000 missiles.
The other thing is, if you look at like how these things are calculated and what they classify as a civilian and a non-combatant and a combatant, in a lot of instances, it's like if you're male, you're automatically assumed to be a combatant. This is true in the Middle East.
Right.
So I know this is true of how America calculates its civilian casualties. So so I'll put it like this.
Jesus.
If there's a Predator drone strike.
Jesus. Yeah. So the 200,000 casualties in Iraq was just women and children. Then.
No. This is for
just women.
No. This is for if you're doing like a Predator drone strike and you're calculating casualties.
Right.
So any men killed by a Predator drone strike are automatically assumed to have been combatants.
Right.
So when you see like the civilian calculations, keep in mind that they're not including the men.
Yeah.
Because they've been transferred over to this idea of being a military combatant. And then there's all kinds of other shit that they use to justify certain shit. You can actually, like, if you go on like the website LiveLeak, which I highly recommend you don't, because there's a lot of fucking gore on there, but what you also see is footage from like Predator drones and the live feeds for like the infrared cameras on like 50 cal machine guns and tanks, or AC-130s. And like you can also hear like the radio communication between people. Like the one that always
that's just Antonia moving, by the way, with the look of "oh my god, I'm so sorry" on her face. It's alright, don't worry about it.
The one that I remember most was a guy.
She farted.
Was a guy where he was clearly moving irrigation piping in a field. Right?
Yeah.
But over the radio combat, the guy who was operating the infrared like 50 cal thing was radioing back to base for basically for permission to fire. So what he says over the radio is, I believe I've got a potential target. Describes them as they seem to be moving weapons, because this guy was going back and forth in this field, moving irrigation pipes.
Right.
Clearly irrigation pipes.
Yeah.
And there's also like if I remember rightly in the radio chatter, there's like a clear implication because the guy over at base is like giggling to himself because he knows this is a bullshit exchange.
Right.
How certain are you?
Right.
It's like the equivalent of that. He goes like 90% certain, and then like the other guy goes, "Yeah, you've got permission to fire," and then you just see this spray of 50 cal ammunition, and this guy claps.
Right.
So like this shit like that happens. Like, you think that's documented? You think like people like get in trouble for that? They don't. Like,
Of course they don't.
It's people fucking horsing around thinking it's COD.
Yeah,
I'm not, and I don't. Like, I'm not even being like hyperbolic there. In all honesty, I think that the people who operate these fucking things end up treating it like a fucking video game.
Well, like, again, I can kind of understand that.
Yeah.
Because of the training they go through and the fact that they are... Like, you take an 18-year-old, you put them through training and then you stick them in a tank, and what are they going to do?
Let me just be perfectly clear here. This is not me saying, like, what is wrong with this fucking guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have questions. Right, why is he doing that?
Why is he allowed behind the machine gun?
But my issue here is that the checks and balances clearly are not fit for purpose if you're trying to ensure that you're hitting valid targets.
Yeah.
Okay? And the way that the state is trying to represent certain things is clearly fucking bullshit. And this is precisely why, like, local citizens end up becoming terrorists. Because that, like, so take this guy who was laying pipe in the field. Let's say he's got a son.
Yeah.
So this son hears that his dad was just gunned down for no fucking reason by a US troop.
Yeah.
Right? That's what that kid is going to be growing up with. And you're telling me that this guy is going to grow up to love democracy and American values? Like, how fucking warped are you to think that this is going to work? As just another example. And then equally, going back to, like, bringing troops out of Iraq and replacing them with private contractors. You don't think private contractors do this shit? You think private contractors have the same checks and balances? Because I can tell you right now, they fucking don't. So, how do you think the local civilian population is going to respond to these people? And they know who they are. They know why they're there and how they came to be there. They know it's the US doing it. Mm. And we're fucking surprised.
Yeah, no, because that argument we were having on the Facebook group with the guy who was like, "Yeah, those Irish were terrorists." You know,
should we clarify? Like, do you want to elaborate on it?
I don't know. You elaborate.
Okay, I'll tell you. So there's a politics group that both me and Jake are a member of. Like, I love it because, like, it's got a fairly equal balance of left and right, and, like, occasionally you get some really decent discussions happening where, like, you find some really interesting information out from people who, like, either, like, have a profession relevant to it and are bringing, like, technical knowledge to a subject, or just alternative viewpoints. And of course there is a lot of fucking trash. And so a lot of the stuff I do with that is just do responses.
Troll it.
Yeah, it's troll the shit out of it. In my own style of sass.
Yeah.
And there was a guy who was basically saying, there was an article that he linked, I think it was a blog post rather than a news article, where someone was basically saying how back in the day Diane Abbott was advocating for the plight of the IRA and hoped that they won that struggle and unified.
The title was specifically like "Hopes Ireland wins" or "Hopes the British lose" or something like that. But
yeah.
Whether or not she actually said that.
Yeah, and like, and then and the question he was asking, which was a fucking leading question, which is why I trolled the shit out of it. This would be an example of trash. Was like, how can people want people like this to be leaders in Britain when they are clearly so anti-British?
Yeah, like, implying that
So I said, because not everyone believes that criticism of a country means that you're anti that country. Quite the opposite, in fact.
Oh, but I mean, the problem is, I went on that at the wrong moment where I was getting frustrated with my fucking sewing, and I was just like, and I just fucking went off on one, like, because this guy just basically went, he was on the right lines. He basically just went, my granddad said that, like, you know, true patriotism is being able to criticise one's own country, basically what you just said, right? And I was like, all for you. And he went, and he had a right to say that because he was a D-Day veteran. And I went,
oh, fail.
And so my response was like, I love how we have this unwritten rule that if you have served in the military, your opinion is somehow more valid. To which his response was, oh, I didn't mention that to validate the opinion. And I went, bullshit, you fucking did.
Yeah.
And he went, well, I would give a point back, but you seem to like swearing, so fuck off. And I went, oh, that sounds like a really good excuse to, like, you know, not admit you're wrong.
Yeah.
But what I really wanted to say to this guy, but I knew it was pointless because he's a fucking idiot. Like, it was basically like, imagine, like, a larger nation had invaded Britain for, how long were we in Ireland? It's far too long. Like,
I mean, what, historically?
Yeah.
nearly 1,000 years.
Right.
Like, what are we talking about here?
Well, no, we weren't. Like when did when did the British Empire occupy Ireland? Like, I don't actually know.
Here's the thing, though, and this is what I think a lot of people who start talking about the IRA don't understand.
Yeah.
And this is actually something I wanted to talk about. The issues between the tensions between the IRA and the British government go back to fucking Cromwell and I forget who was the guy who. The first, like, proper legal system that was laid down, that was written. Because there's a section in that where it, like, breaks down how much you have to pay to kill someone.
And it was for Irish, it was less.
Yeah, for Irish, it was less than a common Englishman.
Yeah.
Right? So this underlying racism and hatred of the Irish goes way fucking back.
Yeah.
Like... So when people say, like, well, how far back do you want to go? Like, my point is, like, this thing has been going on for thousands of years. Like, you have no idea.
This is why the United Kingdom as a concept still amazes me, because we have just been shitting on the Scottish and the Welsh and the Irish since the time we learned to shit.
Time immemorial.
As soon as we learned to shit, we were doing it on the Welsh.
If you want to make it,
and the Irish.
If you want to make a historical argument, like there is something like as to who started it. There was a clan in Ireland that got its shit together and basically unified Ireland. They were like proto-Vikings to the UK. Like they were sending out ships from Ireland to fuck up the UK. And they were sending out forces to go raiding in the UK. This guy was fucking... The king who did all this shit was fucking despised across Britain.
Understandably.
Yeah.
Same as the Vikings.
Yeah, and as a result, the Irish came to be fucking despised.
Yeah.
I would argue that was the trigger point. But, yeah... So what? Because of that one incident, we're now justified for like the next 1,000 years to fuck with Ireland whenever we can.
It's hard to pinpoint a time to begin this discussion, right? But like the potato famine's as good a time as any, right? So the potato famine was because we were we occupying Ireland at that point. We were. They were part of the British Empire, right? And they had a famine, and they couldn't feed themselves. And the British Empire not only didn't feed them, as in didn't send food, they blocked other countries from supporting them as well. Yeah, just allowed them to starve.
This is
because of this innate hatred.
Let's just be clear. Why do you think there's so many people of Irish descent in the US?
They all ran away.
It's because of the fucking potato famine.
Yeah. And they were despised over there as well.
That's how fucking massive that was.
Yeah.
Like, let's just be clear here. Like,
and we occupied them like with military force, and that was quite like.
If you want just to be clear, if you want an equivalent, look at the mass population flight out of Syria today. It's the same thing.
At what point did Southern Ireland gain independence again? When was that?
I don't know.
I'm going to Google that. I'm going to Google that because it's so recent.
Yeah. He asked for an example of where, like, going back to the guy on this Facebook group, he asked for an example where, like, I said to him, like, you are aware the British government has killed children, right? Because he asked this, like, straw man question of, like, oh, so you support the killing of children? Because a number of IRA attacks did result in the death of children. I'm not okay with that, and I'm not defending that, but that wasn't the crux of my point. That was not a position I was defending, but that's what he decided to do. Like, oh, you support child killers. You are automatically wrong. So, taking his argument to its logical conclusion, if you're saying that saying that any organisation that's responsible for killing children is automatically in the wrong, how many children do you think the UK government is responsible for killing? Because it's a lot. So you can make that argument if you want, but then both sides are wrong. It was what I was trying to get at, but he was being really fucking evasive. He asked, like, for an example where the UK government specifically went out to kill... he said specifically kill children. I made the point of Dresden. Now, let's just be clear. Bomb Command was not going out there with the express purpose of killing children. However, it was going out there with the express command of destroying civilian structures and resources. That was not a military... they weren't attacking military targets. They were deliberately attacking civilian targets. So there is an example, surely. Children were fucking killed in Dresden. I know this because... This conversation came up on a talk radio show where they actually had a live someone called in who survived the Dresden attack when she was a little girl. Like, that was fucking horrific. So this is not me saying that like Bomber Command is clearly evil, that the UK government is clearly evil. It's just me saying you have to acknowledge that that happened. And if you're trying to make like a moral argument here, then you have to understand that. But like both sides have done that. But he just didn't want to concede that because he was a fucking idiot, or he just didn't see the connection, or just didn't want to see the connection. So with regards to like when did Northern
Okay, so 1922 was when
Northern Ireland gained its independence.
No, Southern Ireland was created. So in 1922, Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland essentially came about. Before then, were part of the UK, and that was when the peace treaties were agreed. But England carved out Northern Ireland to keep, and that was the most economic part of Ireland at that time. So like my argument to him would be like, imagine like imagine in England, right? Like 100 years ago, imagine England had been occupied for the last 1,000 years, right? Say by France, and then 100 years ago they carved off Kent and London, and then left you with the rest of it to make do with best you can after carving out the biggest part of your economy, right? Imagine you live in Kent, right? And all of your friends and family live the other side, right? And then on top of that, you have like a massive kind of like religious turmoil, which is between the Protestants and Catholics, which caused the Troubles, right? And then France sends troops in to Northern Ireland to shoot you. What is your response? Right? What is your response to that, my man? What do you do at that point, right?
You have no tanks, you have no you have no conventional, you have no capacity to.
But like I know what that guy's response would have been if it's like, well, what if somebody invaded England? Pick up a gun and shoot them.
All right, Dad's Army.
Right? Like, but it would be like, that's what you would argue for. Guerrilla warfare, Dad's Army sort of shit.
Agree.
Right?
I agree. And whenever
then when anybody else does it, they're like, oh, terrorists.
Whenever someone says
what?
Also, whenever someone says that, I always think, how fucking adorable.
Well, no, not being funny. Like there is proof that that kind of tactic will eventually work. Right?
Yeah, this is unconventional warfare tactics, and if you want like a historical example, like Fabian tactics.
Like again, to quote Immortal Technique, no matter what you think, occupation does not mean victory.
Yeah, no, completely.
You know, like as long as the population resists you, you haven't won.
Yeah.
You know,
there's
Ireland would be a prime fucking example.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So like this isn't like and also just to be clear, this is something I really like want to ram home. I don't know if I've said it on the podcast before, but you need to understand this, that there is a difference between sympathising with a terrorist and empathising with a terrorist. Okay, a terrorist sympathiser is someone who believes in their cause. So like I support jihad. Right? That's me sympathising with ISIS. Like I support ISIS's jihad. Right? That's me sympathising. I'm
not sure that would be a terrorist supporter, not a sympathiser. Surely
you can be charged under terrorism.
All right, legally, yeah.
So you're right, but that's why I'm phrasing it this way. Someone who is empathetic to a terrorist position understands why they are doing what they are doing, but doesn't necessarily condone it.
Right.
There is a difference.
Without condemning or condoning.
Yeah. Like, so, but simply, it's an important distinction to make because I'm sick and tired, and this goes back to this kind of like, oh, you're guilty of wrongthink, fuck you. You are now dead to me. Like, there is a level of nuance to a conversation that to this type of conversation, and this applies to everything within like social justice circles as well.
Yeah.
Like, if you start if you start to use a very anecdotal example, there's a number of YouTube celebrities, YouTube like cult personalities who have like massive followings in social circles. Is it Amy Wu? I forget her name, but
okay.
This woman is. I say woman.
Was that the lady who was like, you must not keep more than 30 books in your house, or am I thinking entirely?
No, you're thinking of something else entirely. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I'm just going to refer to them as they because I'm unsure of their gender. They gained a massive kind of cult following. This person is not well. They have a mental health issue.
Right.
and it's quite apparent. They're quite bipolar. Like, they have extraordinarily high narcissism, and they have extraordinarily powerful mood swings where they're incredibly depressed and suicidal 1 minute, and then they're absolutely fucking manic the next.
Right.
And it's car crash television, right?
Yeah.
And people just watch this. I think that's one of the reasons she has such a massive following. It's people who like watching car crashes. It's the equivalent of that. However, there was a time, I think this was a number of years ago, they came out as transgender, and they were looking online to buy the medication so that they could undergo like hormone therapy.
Right.
Now, there is like I am sympathetic to a transgender person who, because
and do you mean sympathetic here as in you support them, or sympathetic as in you sympathise with their position?
I support them.
Okay.
Just to be clear, I support them here. If a transgender person is in an environment where either they don't have access to consultation regarding how to undergo transitioning, or because of their family or because of their financial situation, they're not able to access it because they're being denied it that way. I understand why they might decide to buy this shit online and start doing it themselves.
Right.
That's fine. However, with that said, let's go back to Amy. I think their name is Amy Wu. Let's go back to them. This person, for a number of years, has exhibited very profoundly disturbed behaviour online. This person is unwell.
Yeah.
Now, they may well be trans, okay? But that doesn't mean it's a good idea for them to go buy hormone replacement therapy online and start administering it themselves. That is a different thing entirely, okay? Now, I've said all this, but once they came out as transgender, they got such massive support from certain people within the transgender community and became this like fucking massive icon. Like, oh, well done, congratulations, and like, go you, do this thing. Huge amounts of encouragement. But they don't address, like, none of that addresses other issues, right? And so whenever anyone
doesn't take into consideration the context.
Yeah, whenever anyone brought up the question of like, is this a good idea right now? Do you maybe have other issues you need to? Now, one could make the argument that perhaps she has these extreme. Perhaps they have these extreme issues.
Mood swings because they are transgender.
Of gender dysphoria.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, that's fine, but that's not for.
Find it out.
Yeah, that's not for the internet community.
Get a professional to tell you.
That's not for the internet community to decide, and that's not.
This is a life-changing decision. Make sure it's the right.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a debate as to how life-changing it is. There'll be mental ramifications, sure.
Yeah.
Depending on this is a completely different subject. But my point here is, you can't have that conversation with her supporters, all of whom are advocates for transgender rights.
Yeah.
This goes back to the question of wrongthink. As soon as you deem someone as guilty of wrongthink, they are transphobic.
Yeah.
But to say, well, hang on, simply the act of saying, hang on, are you sure this is a good idea because of this, and this right now? This is not me saying you aren't transgender. This is just me. This behaviour has a context behind it.
Yeah.
Or
find out if you're going to exacerbate your current condition.
So
with the treatment that you're going to take.
Or maybe would it be better? Would it be better to address the underlying condition right now? And then, don't get me wrong. I've heard accounts of people who were transgender who. Well, actually, no. This is going to sound weird, but the only accounts of people I've had from people who are transgender who've themselves started hormone therapy themselves, on their own without consultation, didn't necessarily have the other mental health issues like depression or bipolar.
Right.
But I don't know if there is some of their behaviour was also quite schizophrenic, in the sense that almost believing that they were godlike and a bunch of other shit. There are things that need addressing there. I don't know if there's a correlation between being transgender and adopting very strong narcissistic personality disorder traits, or
don't think so.
Yeah, or schizoid behaviours. I don't think there is.
No.
I can understand. I believe there is a link between depression, social isolation, borderline personality disorder. That all makes sense, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just yawning.
So anyway.
You're going off on one. Keep going.
I am going off on one, but the reason I bring this up here is like much like with Liam Neeson, you can't for one second say, well, he isn't a racist. He's telling a story about something he did that was bigoted racist thinking. Yes, for that week he felt that way, and I would argue was racist. But he realised the error of his ways and the error of his thinking. So, like, how is he wrong to tell this story, and why should you end his career because of it? Equally, like, yeah. Anyway, I mean, there's another one. To give another example that is less kind of controversial. There was Watson and Crick who discovered, the two guys who are attributed with discovering the structure of DNA, the double helix structure of DNA.
Right.
They, I think it was Crick. One of them's dead. The other one, relatively recently, said that there is a racial element to IQ.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I know you talking about.
And there was this massive campaign to have his Nobel Prize
James
removed.
Watson and Francis Crick.
Yes, those guys. One of them recently said that there's a genetic component to IQ, and one of the factors is race. Now, a couple of things. I'm not a genetic biologist by any stretch of the imagination, but when a biologist starts referring to race in genetic terms rather than ethnicity, which are two very different things, I can't help but feel that they are using a very outdated classification system that no longer exists in genetic biology. Because we don't deal in race. Because genetic biologists don't deal with race, they deal with ethnicity, as in genetic region.
Right.
So they wouldn't say race, they'd say ethnicity. So that's my first issue. He seems to be using language that is incredibly outdated. Where's he getting this from?
Right.
Secondly, and this is perhaps the bigger one, so let me get this straight.
Yeah, well, he said those who deal with black employees find this is not true. Like,
find what isn't true?
That all races are born with equal intelligence.
Wow.
That's what he said.
Okay.
It's just straight up racism.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay. The other thing I would kind of want to add to this is like, wait. So you're telling me that people from different parts of the world, i.e., not the Western world, when taking a Western world designing of a cognitive test, which is what an IQ test is, it doesn't actually measure intelligence. It's a cognition test with a specific set of categories. So you're telling me that they score differently? Gee, no fucking kidding. Like, yeah. Like, of course they score differently. Why is that a surprise?
Implying IQ is an accurate assessment of intelligence as well.
Applying IQ in this context of, like, what would you call it? Like, race relations? Like, I don't know. Like, employment relations between race? Like, implying that somehow is a factor.
Yeah.
This is another thing I want to address. Like, there's a bit of kind of confusion here with when someone says... first of all, when someone says they have a high IQ, and that means, like, that somehow they have, like, a superior take on the world, you can just ignore everything that they have to say, right? Because they don't know what scoring a high IQ means.
Yeah.
And they don't understand what that is to do with and what that is showing.
Yeah.
Okay? And they are using that figure completely inappropriately. And I'll extend this further. So, like, high IQ societies exist, which I find hilarious. So you've got organisations like Mensa, which I was a member of for quite a long time, but I decided I didn't want to pay subscriptions anymore. There were justifications for why I did it. Like, if I decided that I ever wanted to try and get into higher learning institutions or take part in, it's a bit complicated to explain, but basically it would have been an avenue for me to try and get funding for things.
Yeah.
So that's why I kept my subscription. It wasn't because I believed in the organisation, because I find the organisation a bit absurd.
Right.
Because what it's essentially implying is that, well, because you've got a high IQ, it means that, like, there are things that you can do that others can't. And there is an element of truth to that, but
only an element.
At the same time, it's not saying that the higher your IQ, the better you are, or the better you will do.
You can have a high IQ.
I'm a university dropout.
Right, you can have a high IQ and still be a completely useless individual.
Yeah, and I would go even further than that. I would argue that IQ doesn't really have any bearing on your ability to succeed in life.
Yeah,
that might sound odd, but
well, that boils down to the fact that you only need so many smart people in the world doing.
No, okay, because when you say smart people, these aren't necessarily people who would score high on who would score high IQ. I'll put it like this: it wouldn't surprise me if there's plenty of people who have earned a Nobel Prize who have a relatively average IQ of between 90 and 110.
Right.
Okay. We aren't talking about people who are going to be scoring 180 or 160. We're talking about it's difficult to explain, but IQ doesn't really have any bearing on it. And if you're wondering why does the fucking test exist, well, this is why I use the language of it's a cognitive test, because what it's actually measuring is how you perform in certain cognitive aspects that have diagnostic uses. It is a diagnostic tool. It is not a performance tool. It's not like an SAT. It's not like your A levels or a qualification. It's a diagnostic tool. So I was diagnosed with autism and dyslexia and ADHD because I took an IQ test.
Yeah.
So does that now clear it up for everyone? That's what it's actually measuring. And it's not because the end score isn't really the relevant part. It's the subcategorizations of that score. So, an IQ test basically breaks down to spatial reasoning, working memory, vocabulary, the ability to read and absorb and retain information. These are different things that it measures.
That's a big one.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I came across that when I applied to MI6.
Wow.
Yeah, boy.
Check you out.
Well, I applied for the job because I was like, fuck it, it'd be hilarious. And then they sent me the job application. I got halfway through it and I was like, nah, I'm out. Not because I couldn't do it. I was just like, if this has any bearing on the work that I'm going to do, I don't want to do this.
Yeah,
This is because it was essentially just like reading information and then answering a certain number of questions in a certain period of time.
Yes.
Which is essentially what we're talking about. That's like what working memory, yeah?
No.
Oh.
Well, working memory is so remember the sequence of numbers 978543.
All right.
Now repeat it back to me.
978543.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then waiting 5 minutes and asking you to send it back to me. Could you
Right.
tell it to me?
Right.
You couldn't.
978543.
Yeah. Your working memory is your RAM. Is your
Right.
disposable RAM. It's not something that you're. So I can say to you a string of numbers and you can repeat it back to me, but you're not going to repeat it back to me 5 minutes later.
No, because that's the difference between short term and long term, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but working memory specifically is measuring that. It's measuring your RAM.
short term.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, but then like.
So here's a question: what does a really high working memory give you in life?
Absolutely fuck all.
There we go. So I'll put it like this: I could have so you will score a quotient value for that. Now, what a quotient value is how much from the norm your ability deviates.
Right.
So most people, let's say, can only have a working
6 numbers. Whatever,
6 numbers, or a telephone number. Right, and then but 1 in 200,000, you can tell them 100 numbers, and they'll be able to repeat it straight back to you.
Yeah.
Right, but that's 1 in 200,000, so you would be assigned a quotient value, which may be something like 180. Okay, so that's how far you deviate from 100.
Yeah.
100 is
and that's your IQ.
In that specific area.
Right.
So I'll put it like this: you could have.
And is it almost like a mean of all of them?
Yeah. So if you could have a score of 180 in that, and then every other category score 100, but your end result IQ is going to be 120.
Yeah.
Your complete value is going to be 120 because of how weighted that part has pushed the average.
Is that one useless skill?
Yeah, is that one useful thing?
There might be a use for it. We don't know. But
so my question is, what does that final number actually give you?
Kind of feel bad now for all those people who are really good at remembering in their short term. No, you're beautiful, guys.
Okay,
there's a use for you somewhere.
I can make an argument for why a high working memory has certain advantages.
Yeah.
So your ability to so let's say you're reading a spreadsheet and you can hold all those numbers in your head and you can find the one that you're looking for.
Yeah.
The one that's relevant, the one that's odd,
Right.
That's where working memory is useful, right?
Christ, what a boring job.
Well, no. Well, I mean, so are you familiar with the wow signal?
No.
Okay, the wow signal was the first evidence that physicists ever found for pulsars. Now, if you don't know what a pulsar is, it's a spinning black hole. No, I think it's a spinning neutron star or a spinning black hole potentially, and a black hole has if it's spinning, can have these two focal points that basically blast huge quantities of very concentrated radiation. Generally in the radio in the radio wave spectrum, and these are colossal signals, right?
Right.
And when we first started using radio telescopes to scan the sky, which has a variety of different uses.
Yep.
So you can use radio telescopes to make a composite image of something using radio waves. It doesn't have anywhere near the definition of light because of the length of its waveform, but it has uses, and also you get less signal degradation from radio waves than you do from light particles, and their diffusion patterns are very different. So you can essentially see further, but a lot less clearer with a radio telescope than you can with an optical telescope. If that makes sense.
Okay.
But while they were scanning, while they were using this, there was a signal that cropped up that was just ridiculous, and that at that point, our current understanding of what existed in the universe couldn't account for what this fucking thing was.
Right.
And the operator, or I forget what her official title was, but in order to spot this signal, because of the way it was read out on the paper, in order to have spotted this is really fucking hard on the readout. To have realized, because of the massive spectrum that this telescope, the massive area that this telescope was looking at.
Yeah,
it's essentially like picking out a dead pixel in a massive broken. Right.
So reading the Matrix.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was reading these results live, and if you look up the wow signal and find an image of it, you see this massive page. Of basically just numbers, and you have no idea what any of it means. And then there's just this one pen mark, which I think is in red pen, where she's highlighted this one number, written next to it, "Wow!" ! And then gone back to reading the rest of the information. Right? That was her job. And then when she was done on her shift of doing that, she went and reported to the head of her department, saying there is this insane signal that the machine picked up. And this the reason I'm sharing this story is because the guy who she reported to later in an interview said, in all honesty, it was a sheer fluke that she discovered it, because of all the people to have been on shift, it was her, and she's always been the one who's always found the most odd pieces of information, because everyone else misses it. There's an example of, I would argue, she potentially has a very high working memory.
Yeah.
That's a very specific example, but you're talking about what a very boring job. But I think she,
but she enjoys it. That's the thing. Because it's it's like people who work in corporate fraud and money and that sort of thing. They treat it like chess. Yes. That. That's what it is for them. It's just so fucking interesting, because they're just I'm going to trawl through all of this shit to find that one mistake that you've made that means I've got you. Right? And all it takes is one.
And they live for that. And that's great. I love that.
Right. I'm going to call a wrap up.
Okay.
To the podcast, because I need to get home.
Yes.
Well, I don't actually have to be there for 6 now. So
okay.
A little bit late, just to let you know.
Okay. Well, we won't. It's 6 o'clock now, so we won't get there for 6 anyway. So I'll still wrap it up. Thanks for letting me know. Oh my God! You've got to send that to me.
That's got to be our. That's got to be our time.
That's going to be our. And everything. Oh no! But we need to use it as our video picture. Oh.
Use it in the next one.
Yeah.
Use it in the next one. Okay, guys. Next podcast. That artwork was for this one.
They don't know anything about the artwork.
Oh Christ! Yeah. Okay, Antonia, who is amazing. That is an artist and has drawn a picture specifically for the podcast.
You can draw a sketch if you want.
No, it's okay. We'll wait for the next one. We'll wait for the next
I
one.
want to see the colour.
Do you want us a picture specifically for the podcast that we will put on the next video so you can all enjoy it as well?
And
Not this video, the next one.
We're not going to say what it is.
No, we're not going to say what it is. It's going to be a surprise. But it's so accurate. It's unreal.
It really is.
It's so great. Anyway, final thoughts.
Liam Neeson did nothing wrong, and
the MAGA kids did nothing wrong.
Yeah, and get over yourself. Stop taking yourself so fucking seriously.
And
learn to
a ban for a ban leaves you blind.
Yeah, leaves you blind to the world.
What else?
Learn to grow your own food, how to purify water, and how to break down electronics into useful parts, because you're going to need it, son.
And you might last a little bit longer than the rest of us.
Yeah.
Do you know how to break down electronic parts?
Yes.
Do you know how to purify water?
I'm working on it. I've not found anything that's satisfactory.
Do you know how to grow food?
Not well enough for me to want to be confident.
But you're on the way.
I'm on the way.
Okay. The other option is make friends with a guy who can do all of that.
Final thoughts.
But that's okay, because I'm going to be the blacksmith.
Yeah, no, like there's
metal worker,
sewer.
There are skills that I have that will be useful, but honestly, the key ones are water, food, and shelter. So
yeah,
Anyway, any other final thoughts that I want to add to this? Like there was one, but I've forgotten it now. Damn it. Oh yeah, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Boom.
There we go.
That's an old school saying.
We're closing with favourite quotes. Here's mine. Herman Melville. There is no greater fallacy than the criticisms of the behaviour of the poor by the well-housed, well-warmed, and well-fed.
There's the one on the Facebook meme, which is like, when you're dead, it's not you that hurts. You hurt those around you. You hurt your friends, and you hurt your family, and you hurt anyone who's ever associated with you. Same thing happens when you're stupid.
Oh yeah, okay. I got one like that. Like every atom in my body was once part of a star, but so was garbage. So fucking get over yourself.
Oh, that's good. Oh, it's beautiful. That is beautiful. Remember, you're the sperm that made it.
The little sperm that could.
The choo choo. And then I turned to the other sperm and I said, I can't feel my legs. Quoting Major Payne, another film that nobody's seen, so go watch that. It's great. Anyway, until
Bye.
next week. Bye.